Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and this is a new episode of the Web Dev 101 podcast. And in this episode, and again, you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. So if you haven't subscribed before, please do. I haven't been the greatest about giving you regular episodes recently, but I'm going to try to be upping it. But if you didn't know, my YouTube channel has been putting out super regular content on coding, particularly in JavaScript, but also some Go, and I've pretty much at least done one video in most languages, like with the exceptions of like Haskell. So if you haven't checked that out over there at youtube.com, if you go to alexmercedcoder.com, you can find a link to the YouTube channel. Especially if you're a JavaScript programmer, there is a lot of great content there on things like destructuring and scoping that really help grab at the tiniest nuances of JavaScript to make you a better coder. So go check those out. I think you will enjoy. And also check out devnursery.com. Devnursery.com is actually a place where I have all those playlists organized. And there's a great community of developers. There's a Slack community, a Discord community, and a Spectrum community. So whatever your social platform of choice is, you can get on there and meet other developers, ask questions, and be part of the community. So go check those out. It's a great way to, network. But in this video, what I want to do is just talk about what's my story. Okay, so if you've been listening to this podcast, you know, when I first started this podcast, I was just kind of learning and working towards becoming a full stack developer. Now I am. I'm actually full-time employed with two full-time remote jobs in development. One with a company by the name of Crossfield Digital, helping startups and anyone who needs, development help develop stuff. So I'm developing, startup applications using like React, TypeScript, and GraphQL, and then using things like jQuery to help people do work on their existing applications. So, now that I'm doing that full time, how did I get there? Because I know there's a lot of people who are looking to become developers, and it can seem, before you get there, it can seem like a scary journey. And in hindsight, it really wasn't. But there are things that you can do to be more successful on that journey. So I figured I'd tell you my journey. So before I got into this, I did have exposure to programming. When I was a kid, I was really into video games. So I used to want to be a programmer because I wanted to make video games. And one of my favorite things as a kid was a thing by the name of RPG Maker, particularly RPG Maker 2K, because there's lots of versions of RPG Maker, which allowed me to make like old school role playing games. And it didn't require like technical coding in the sense of like actual having to learn some sort of programming language. But it did require you to do scripting, mostly through like pushing buttons that allowed you to kind of allocate your commands. But this allowed me to kind of practice programmatic thinking and thinking about conditional statements and loops, because all of that was in there. Because you would do that in order to create your game. You can create like custom everything. So that gave me a lot of sort of exposure at a younger age. In high school, I was part of a robotics team. I was part of I went to a special high school. There was a technical high school, so I did do some C++ coursework during high school. I was a big fan of producing music, so I used to do a lot of work with FL Studio, which also has like a lot of programmatic elements in how you design sort of music. So there was a lot of things that gave me the opportunity to sort of think programmatically that made my particular situation probably not the norm. In a sense, you'll see that I was able to kind of get up and running, start my career pretty quickly. So I just want to paint context so that way to set your expectations. Although I think it can still be done pretty quickly. And then in college, I was also originally a computer science major, so I did take like a semester's worth of like C++ and some other computer science courses, and understood a lot of fundamental sort of concepts of like memory and the heap and the stack and all that stuff. But after that, I went and changed my major to popular culture studies. Literally, I was studying like anthropology and sociology as applied to, Harry Potter or stuff like that. It was very interesting, and I still feel like it has a huge impact on my perspective and ability to communicate trends today, but not the path typically people go down. And then after college, I ended up working in finance for over 10 years, training people in the financial industry. And there's other stuff I did, but those are sort of the highlights that lead us to where we are now. So at the end of the 10 years of training, Wall Street isn't what it used to be. So, and then plus I was looking to leave New York City. So it was time for me to kind of figure out what sort of the next leg of my journey was. And I've always kind of really enjoyed programming. Even during the years, I would every once in a while go back and revisit C++. Like the most recent time before that, I revisited C++ because I was interested in trying to get into more blockchain stuff, because I've been following the blockchain stuff from when like Bitcoin was like $2. But I never really like programmed a thing other than maybe like a choose your own adventure text-based game kind of thing. But then in 2019, I decided, okay, you know what? It's time to really kind of like relearn programming again, and this time just stick with it till you get to the point where you can build stuff. So I ended up getting a couple of Udemy courses on Python, and originally the route I was going to go all in on Python. I was going to go learn Python and then teach myself PyQt, which is like Python's Qt framework to make like desktop apps, Kivy, which is a framework in Python to make mobile apps, and Django for making web apps, and just be sort of like a strong general Python developer that can build all sorts of different apps with Python. And that's pretty much what I did from June 2019 to August. So first I got some courses on Udemy and on Skillshare. I started watching those. And then I ended up downloading this app called Sololearn. And I also downloaded a few other ones which I'll mention, but Sololearn was great as far as giving you sort of introduction to the syntax. It has like 11 courses, and the subscription is well worth it. I think it was like $99 for the year. And I did all the courses. I did everything on Swift, on Java, on C++, on C, on C#, on JavaScript, on Ruby. And the benefit of that is just kind of doing each language. You're going over the same concepts of classes and functions over and over again. And that one reinforced the conceptual part of it, because you're learning the concept over and over again and seeing the different ways that it's presented in different languages, but also helped me appreciate the difference between, okay, so this is just what's the difference in syntax, meaning the way you write it, versus what's the actual fundamental idea behind a function in a class, because you kept seeing the same idea over and over again, and a lot of the similarities over and over again. So that really kind of strengthened my foundation and appreciation for what I'm doing when I'm programming. What are sort of the technicalities of how information is being passed around and whatnot. So I highly recommend downloading the Sololearn app, going through all 11 of those courses. It took me about a month to get through all of them. I would just do them, and you could do it a lot faster because I was only doing it during my commute, because it was on a mobile phone, so I could just do it while I was on the subway. So I did that. Basically, I did a whole bunch of Sololearn, watched a bunch of Skillshare Udemy courses, then started watching a lot of videos on YouTube, particularly from like Academine, Traversity Media. Trying to think what other ones I really enjoy. Web Dev Simplified is a great channel. Nowadays, my channel is a great channel. There's a lot of really good YouTube content, and that all really helped solidify my knowledge. But there was still something missing, in the sense that like I was learning, and I was able to like code things to an extent. I was able to put together a Django application and deploy it, but I still didn't really have a clear idea of the big picture, as far as assembling especially a web application, sort of the big picture of what the pieces are, how they differentiate. And then also, how do I turn this into a career? I just, I was like, okay, I get it. I'm learning things, and I'm building up experience, and I'm building things. But how do I communicate that to an employer? How do I demonstrate this? I get I need a portfolio. I get I need to build things, but I just felt like there was this gap. And also my core skill set was lacking because I was just kind of doing so many things in general, which I'm glad I did, because it improved my knowledge, and my foundational knowledge conceptually was very strong, which has made me very nimble learning things now. But at the time, my actual skill of doing the actual coding could use some work. And so I needed discipline. I needed guidance. I needed just someone to kind of take all this work that I've been doing, all the distance that I've traveled, and just get in the right direction. So I started looking into the boot camps, because I wasn't going to go back to college for another 2-4 years. That just wasn't going to happen, nor that I think the cost was worth it. Relative to, I already have 10 years of experience, professional experience. I have debts and bills I got to pay. So I could do 3 months off. A couple years, different story. So then what happens is I look up and I see like a lot of really sort of good reviews for General Assembly, and I enroll. Originally, I wanted to actually take the course on campus because I just figured it'd be nicer to be there with someone in person. In hindsight, I'm glad things worked out the way they did. With the schedule for me to exit my existing job at the time, I couldn't make the more recent class in the New York campus, and the next one would be too far. So I ended up joining the remote class, which was a phenomenal experience. Specifically for programming, online just works really well because you want to share yours. Because one, imagine you're in a classroom, there's all these computers, and basically, you're not really talking to the people who are, because there might be someone 3 rows ahead of you, so you can't really talk to them. You can't really interact with them. 2, it's harder for your instructor to see your screen and kind of help you troubleshoot things. While when you're online, you just share your screen, and then the whole class can sit there and work together to troubleshoot an issue, which is awesome. Basically, it felt like being in a class. I mean, the mix of using Zoom and Slack in a very creative way was for a great experience. The exercises were great. Like I basically, every night we had 4 hours of homework, but the homework was forced you to repeat stuff over and over again. So the kind of discipline I didn't have on my own to sort of just, hey, let's just make another function, make another function, make another function. Okay, make another class, make another class, make another class, to sort of really drill down those fundamental programming patterns into you was very, very effective, and really helped shore up what I was lacking at my core. And look, since I had already done all that stuff in the past, the class definitely was a lot easier for me than probably many of the others in the course who were, for the most part, starting from scratch. These courses are designed for those who literally, you picked up coding 2 weeks ago, kind of thing. I had already again, sort of dabbling throughout my life, and then the 4 to 6 months of pre-prep that I did prior to taking this course in September, because I started really kind of preparing myself, or teaching myself programming in, let's say, June, maybe May. So that's June, July, August, and then the class started at the end of September. So it's 4 months of really literally intense self-study. And that class ran from September 2019 to early January 2019. And statistically, I think the standard outcomes for a student in a boot camp, particularly General Assembly, is that about 99% of the students will find the job within I think it's 98% of the students, maybe. I don't remember the exact number. It's not 99 in the first 3 months. It's 98, 96% in the first 3 months. And then 99% will find the job or achieve an outcome in the first 6 months. The reason I changed the term is because an outcome could be different. It might be them starting their own business. They might find a part-time job. But the point is they'll start their career within the first 3 to 6 months. For a variety of reasons. Some people don't start their job search until right after the class ends. So there is a ramp up in the job search. I started my job search pretty much, I think, 2/3 of the way of the class in. I started sending out resumes because I already had a portfolio going into the class, and actively kept updating my portfolio with the projects I was making during class and whatnot. So I was very, very aggressive about making this change in my life. And during the weekends, I was teaching myself other languages. A lot of the videos you'll see on my YouTube where I teach other languages were made on the weekends. I just learned a new language because the concepts were there. It's just learning new syntax. So I'd learn a new language on the weekends, make videos, and send out resumes. So I was moving at a very quick pace. And so basically I was able to land pretty early on because I was able to demonstrate that, 1, I can learn things really quick, and 2, that I'm really passionate about what I'm doing. I really enjoy coding. I really enjoy learning more about coding. And that comes across. And because I've done all these videos on YouTube, this podcast, my ability to talk about these subjects and talk about what they mean and how they connect to each other has become fairly decent. So when I'd be in an interview, I could communicate well, I could communicate confidently, and these are the things that get you a job. Okay, hint, hint. So what happens is that I get interviewed, and particularly at the company that I'm working at now, and they were looking for GraphQL developers. I wasn't a GraphQL developer, but they said, hey, you know what? If you can learn it, we'll give you a shot. And they gave me a few days. They gave me a particular task I had to do. I read through the documentation. I pulled it off, created the thing, and then learned a lot more GraphQL since then. Where now I'm very, very comfortable with GraphQL. But it worked out because, again, I came across passionate during the talk because I am passionate, and I was able to demonstrate my ability to learn. And these are the two key things, more than anything, you're trying to get across in an interview. This is especially at when you're trying to come in. You're not going to be able to say, hey, I have 20 years of experience and I can anticipate all these different situations. But if you're passionate, you're going to do good work. If you can learn quick, you'll be able to hit the ground running. So, and that's basically what it takes to hire someone new. So one, things like Sololearn I highly recommend as far as just, as a starting point. Also, General Assembly has this free online course called Dash. So if you go to dash.generalassem.ly, it does a pretty good, it's like 5 lessons, and it does a pretty good thorough intro to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which is a good primer. It's a good way to know, okay, is this for you? And still learn a lot of really useful stuff that you can translate into other careers. Because being able to know the basics of how a website's created really is useful regardless of what you're doing. Even if you're not making websites, just knowing sort of the fundamentals of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is a useful skill. So I highly recommend everyone does that. But then the actual General Assembly bootcamp is great. Okay, it's phenomenal design, and they run a tight ship. Let's just put it that way. It's well done, and the outcome worked for me. So I mean, the proof. I'm the proof. Because I mean again, when you're going through this boot camp, particularly with General Assembly, I don't know how things go in other boot camps, but it wasn't just the coursework, but it was also the fact that you're with a career coach every week, and then that advice was actually really useful for me because despite all the stuff that I know, and I know a lot of stuff, job searching was never a skill that I've refined. I had the same job for 10 years, okay, and I found that job pretty early on because, again, I'm generally a very passionate person, and I had some related experiences as far as running my own store, having been a stockbroker for a very brief moment and things like that related to that particular job, and it worked out. So having that guidance was just super valuable, gave me a lot of perspective, and helped reinforce what I was doing right and what I need to be doing more of. And that really gave me the confidence to sit there and execute on the job search. And doing all those videos on YouTube and actually helping out a lot of my fellow students during the course got noticed. And then General Assembly offered me to join their team as an instructor because it was clear that I knew the stuff pretty well, and I was able to communicate it fairly clearly. And people like me. And that's also important as an instructor because, people are going to listen to you more if they don't have a negative opinion of you, if you seem welcoming and you seem empathetic. So when you're in the training field, and I know that from 10 years of training in the financial industry. So now I ended up with 2 full-time jobs, executing the very same class that I took at General Assembly, and which has gone fantastic. And it's gone well, and seeing the students kind of grow from not knowing what a function is to being able to create full stack applications is a pretty amazing thing to kind of see happen. And that, and again, developing applications with Crossfield Digital, helping existing applications, which has been a blast and has allowed me to really refine my skills in things like TypeScript, GraphQL, React. And then on my own, I'm still constantly teaching myself new things, constantly trying to not only learn more languages, but also learn more frameworks and get familiar with new technologies. Like one thing I'm looking at is I want to get familiar with a CMS called Webiny, which mixes like GraphQL and whatnot into it. It sounds and serverless technologies, which sounds very interesting because these are a lot of the technologies that I personally find very interesting. So if there's anything you take away from this, is that you want to make this the smoothest career transition possible. Find the passion. Okay, don't be thinking all the time about how is doing this going to get me a job. Okay, try to find why it's interesting to you. Try to understand what it is that you're doing that's exciting, and what value are you producing, because that's going to make you want to produce more of it. It's going to make you really excited to do it. And then also just work on your ability to learn. And the best way to work on your ability to learn is just to learn things. Some days it'll be harder, but the more you learn, the easier it is to learn. So just never stop learning and always be passionate about what you're doing. And again, when I say be passionate, that doesn't mean you have to be passionate about a specific thing. Anyone who knows me in my life, I just find a reason to be passionate about anything that I'm doing. And if I can't find a reason, I'm passionate because I'm doing it. And I like doing good things and doing good work and showing people that I got something to offer. And if you have that mindset, you'll always do amazing things, and you'll never find it too hard to get where you want to be. And always be creative in how you get somewhere, okay? In the sense that if the front door isn't open, okay? So oftentimes people will get there, yeah, maybe I should try something different and try to contact people directly on LinkedIn. But people sit there and say, hey, I'm looking for a job. Do you have a job for me? That might not be as effective as saying, hey, do you mind if I work for you for free for like 1 month? Give me a shot. Let me do something for you. And if it works well, it doesn't have to be something big, but something that works well, we talk further. And if not, we part ways. But put some risk on the table. Okay, when you show that you're willing to take some risk, people are willing to take risk on you. Okay, if you sit there and say, hey, I want you to take all the risk. I want you, yes, I'm reaching out to you directly, not through the traditional hiring process. But I'm saying, I want you to take all the risk. I want you to hire me and pay me what I want. Even though I'm completely unproven, that's going to be a much harder ask. Okay, so think about how you can share the risk. If there's a particular job you want, a particular company you want to be at, you can be there. But you got to share the risk. Okay, if you want someone to take a chance on you. Okay, you got to take a chance on them. And if you go there with that mindset, and again, this is not just for this, but really for anything in life, you will find that life will be very rich, very rewarding. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this to some of my other podcasts about sort of motivation and restarting your life, because this whole episode I think has a lot of really great advice in that regard. But my name is Alex Merced. This is the Web Dev 101 podcast. There will be more episodes more regularly now about web dev technologies. If you are a web developer, please make sure you head over to devnursery.com and sign up for the community, get to meet some of the other developers that are part of the community. There's a lot of like bootcamp grads, providing mutual support and encouragement. There is a lot of experienced developers providing wisdom. So go join. It's a useful place to be. And also subscribe to my YouTube channel and tell other people to subscribe to this podcast. Thank you very much. Have a great day and enjoy. My name is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com.